Brian from Your Paranormal. Look, we're so excited. This is Your Paranormal's first investigation, okay? Very, very exciting stuff. Now, we decided to break this full report up into 4 different sections, which will be released over 4 weeks in the month of May, each Sunday. Now, the first section is all about the history of the location. Now, this is going to be the same kind of setup that we're going to do for all of our investigations, okay? So, if we go to, say, an investigation at a giant asylum, on these breakdowns, we want to give you kind of the research that we've conducted beforehand about the history, about the, I'd say, rumors that's going on about the specific asylum. Now, for this one, this is our first investigation ever. It is the Cunningham Private Residence 1, CPR 1, because we like to abbreviate things here. So when we talk about CPR, or the Cunningham Private Residence, this is actually a famous private residence that we've been closely looking at because the husband and wife are actually members of Your Paranormal, and we've been paranormally investigating there through my college group for a very long time. Actually, about 10 or so investigations, a good handful with me, a good handful without me. So there was about 10 investigations prior, and I kind of want to go through this breakdown. Now, most history videos of the location aren't going to be this long, but this is a very, very particular investigation, and it's a very well-known investigation throughout our internal community. So without further ado, this is the full history, everything that's happened before our investigation here with the Cunningham Private Residence, and this is for investigation, Your Paranormal's first investigation, CPR 1. So I have a little cheat sheet here, actually, for Brian's birthday. Not me, but Cunningham. I actually made him a 51-page report of his house because he really enjoys the whole haunted aspect. He's very interested about it. He doesn't necessarily want it to go away. More or less, he wants to understand why it's there, this, that, and kind of continue to gather evidence that it is there before he makes a decision. So let me go ahead and go through this. This is the complete Cunningham Private Residence investigation report. All this information and all this history is before Your Paranormal investigation. So let's go ahead and begin. There were 10 okay. This is the preface. Brian and his family have always been haunted, and this is kind of how it all began. So essentially, for this case, the married couple, specifically the husband, had been traveling house to house when he was going through high school, and every little house, there was always something different and very, very crazy. For example, yeah, okay, good. All of these 4 little preface points are in his most recent house that he moved out of. So this is still his family house where his parents and everything are living. Now, he, again, moved around with his family, and everything's something extremely strange, that they just chalked up to paranormal has always, happened as they move throughout the houses. So now I'm taking you to his parents' house. They're still living there, and this is where I met him, and this is where 4 of these instances happened. So this is all before any investigations, before Brian even moved to his new house. This is the house that he lived in before the actual CPR house. So this is a national night out because our community back then had national night outs. Brian, his wife, and his siblings, after the national night out, returned to their home, which is their parents' house. They went inside to unpack, and they didn't even get to go upstairs yet, and they heard a blood-curdling scream. This is insane. From upstairs. They all run outside and wait for their parents to return. And the husband, or Brian, I'll just refer to Brian as, because he's the owner and husband of the current house. He literally just waited for his parents. This is back in high school, and he actually slept in the RV/camper for that night and said, I'm definitely not going back in there. There's something wrong with that house. Okay, that's the first instance. The second one is the girl with no eyes. Brian came down and started talking to his dad from his downstairs. So he was in his bedroom. He came down to the living room downstairs, and he was talking to his dad, and he addressed his sister that was in the corner of the room, like, why are you up? And his dad said, what do you mean she's in bed? And Brian said, no, she's not. My sister's right there. And they both looked, and there's this girl, kind of like a shadow silhouette with no eyes, and they both ran into the kitchen because they were so scared. It's literally crazy. And his father attests to actually seeing this figure. So now we have two witnesses on it. For this particular case, the other one had like 3 or 4. After the third instance, there was actually like a giant plate that was mounted to the wall, and the only way to get it on the floor or break it would be to physically lift it, and it's a very heavy Disney related plate. And they woke up in the middle of the night to a crash, and of course the plate actually came up and smashed on the ground, which they chalked up to paranormal because nothing could have happened unless like someone actually went down there, physically picked it up and dropped it. And lastly, back in high school, we all had a sleepover, and all the guys stayed over for a card night. Someone mentioned the word demon, as it's, we're talking about the house being haunted, and instantly our buddy Gino, who's also in the group, his nose just, as soon as someone said demon, his nose started to bleed. Could be a coincidence, but that's just crazy. And then, of course, John sat in the corner of the card room, just going. It was so funny. Even that night, we had dogs, having miscarriages, screaming in the middle of the night. Crazy time. So, as someone who's at least fascinated back then in high school about the paranormal, I really wasn't in it yet, but that's crazy experiences. So those are the 4 experiences that happened at his parents' house, and now Brian's actually going to move into his own house with his fiance. Okay. Now this is titled The Home. Let me go ahead and try and brief over a few of these things. So when they first got the house, they were hearing some voices, which were really full conversations, and walking around downstairs, doors slamming, and literally Brian was so concerned that someone was in the house that they just bought. Maybe someone had an original key, this, that, or knew how to get into the house, that he would go down there with weapons. And, because he's afraid for his life, he's afraid that the house is going to be broken into, he's afraid for his fiance, and they couldn't find anything. Brian would go down there with a flashlight, everything, turn on all the lights, and nothing would be missing. We were down there one time, all the guys, and there was a light flickering, and Cunningham said, yeah, that actually wasn't happening at all. And then one of our buddies, Mikey, was saying, hey, that's really you, turn that light off. And it literally just stopped flickering for like 20 seconds, and of course all of us are, making a huge deal out of it. And Mikey believes in the paranormal, but he just doesn't want anything to do with it. So he said, hey, look, if that truly was you, like 100%, turn it on full blast right now. And it did. And Mikey just went upstairs. He's like, I'm not going down there until you guys fix that light. It was insane. So we've got waking up and people walking and talking downstairs to sleepovers. Oh yeah, so anytime we'd have like sleepovers there, like if we were having a party or we were just hanging out overnight, people would wake up in the middle of the night and they would hear someone downstairs talking when like no one was sleeping downstairs. So we would be sleeping in the living room, we'd just be crashing on the couch, and people would hear like full conversations down there, and sometimes John and even Gina went down there and there was no one there. It was crazy. This was one of the more recent ones. Brian and Becca, who's the fiance at the time, would literally wake up and the windows would open and the blinds would be pulled back. Now they distinctively remember having the windows closed and the blinds, you know, and like all the curtains shut because it's nighttime. And they would wake up with the windows open and with the curtains open. Now this was a rare occasion. Like obviously it's not happening over and over and over again, but they had to search the house at least twice, and they were obviously concerned. And obviously it could be a coincidence that they might have just forgotten, but this is something, you know, you don't typically leave your, you know, windows open like that. Oh yeah, Brian was on a way to a business conference, and he was FaceTiming Becca, and Becca was in the house, and of course when Becca's alone in the house, she's all freaked out because the house is, you know, crazy, it's haunted, this, that, and they're FaceTiming, and Becca started talking about how like she was hearing some things, and their FaceTime froze, and when it froze, Brian saw some kind of black mass behind her, just like some like weird cloud shadow. And he's like looking at it. He goes, "That's so crazy." And right about he's about to take like a screenshot of it, it kicks back on and like it disappears. It's literally crazy. All this stuff. There's literally pages and pages of this stuff. But I'll go ahead and I'm gonna continue sharing these stories that happened outside of an investigation, because I want you to have the full picture of what's clearly going on in this house. And as over the years we go and investigate more and more, we can have a more encompassing look. So Brian woke up one night and heard some blatant knockings on the closet. And so what he did was, Brian woke up one night and heard knocking, 2 knocks from the closet. As a test, he knocked twice on the headboard of his bed, and sure enough, there was a quick double knock from the closet. He just turned his back to the closet and tried to go back to sleep. Like this is the stuff that you hear from like a scary movie. Like, this is some crazy stuff. Brian was taking a nap one afternoon, and Becca wasn't there. She was at work, and he began to hear not just footsteps, but like tiny footsteps, like running down the hallway into his room. Then went out in the hallway, and it seemed to walk on the walls and start running around in the attic, and then stopped. Brian says this is one of the creepiest things that ever happened in this house. Yeah, listen, if I woke up from a nap and I heard small, like little running around, like in the hallway, coming into the room, exiting the room, going all up on the walls, on the ceiling, that'd be insane. Doors opening and locking. Brian has reported the house that reported that doors that were open will close and sometimes even lock. Sorry, I haven't revisited this in a while. He checked the hinges, etc. And Brian's definitely a handyman. And the knob would have to be turned. So like literally to close or open, the doorknob would actually literally have to be turned because the hinges are so good. And he examined the doors and everything seemed fine. There's no wind or foundation movement that would open these doors. Yeah, that's insane. So Brian has a moosely thing, which is like a Christmas decoration. It's a big moose. We call it moosely, and it would be like looking at the fridge, and slowly but surely as you played his games, it would like slowly move or like rotate and look at him and move closer to him. It's insane. This is definitely like all the crazy insane stuff. And of course we got a moosely of our own because he's so famous. He was at his office and he heard a noise, and he's like, "What's that?" You know, like what in the world is that? And then when he went out to leave his house, he checked his tires and he saw that one of them was completely flat. And like, he doesn't know if someone or something was trying to warn him, because this whole time there's some weird things that go on. And then there's some things that are like, I'm trying to protect you. It's very, very odd. So pictures on walls falling and breaking. Oh yeah. So they have heard bangs in the hallway, and they've woken up to pictures of both Brian and Becca in frames to be on the ground instead of hanging, and some being cracked. So like, they started hanging photos of themselves, and they would wake up and the frames would be almost down the hallway. So like, it's not that they just like slipped and fell down. No, they were being like flung across the hallway. That's insane. Brian thought he saw a little hand on the couch, and then it just sunk back, go like this. This is a good one. So during our college investigations there, we had a doll called Barb. So and they accidentally left Barb at the Cunninghams. So they accidentally left Barb at the Cunninghams. So Brian and Becca put her in the closet under the stairs. The closet door since that day began opening on its own, and even Brian or even Becca's dad mentioned it. This is a hard to open door due to the carpet. It's absolutely crazy hard to open that door. Almost no way it could open without a lot of force. This is so true. One day they went looking for her in the closet and couldn't find her. The door stopped opening on its own. Then the curtains upstairs started moving, and they didn't know why. One day they were looking at the animals that they set up for the holiday scene and saw Barb's eyes behind the animals. There she was. This is crazy. So when she was in the closet, the door would open, and then the curtains next to the animals in the living room began opening on their own, and sure enough, she was there. Now, Becca, so true, is very particular in how she sets things up, especially for holidays, and there's no way she wouldn't have noticed Barb there, because Becca doesn't enjoy Barb whatsoever. She doesn't like Barb at all. And sure enough, she's setting up all these holiday scenes, and she's got her cute little animals out there. There's just no way. This is the crazy stuff that happens at the house. This is a legendary house in our little tiny paranormal community. There's a creepy old man breathing noise for like 10 seconds. Brian was using the restroom and washing his hands, and once he finished up washing his hands, he heard this like weird old man breathing, like, and he just had to stop and be like, what is that? What's going on? It's such a wide range of things going on at this house. Something always seems to happen on Brian's birthday. On one of his birthdays, he woke up to 3 scratch marks on his neck. I have pictures for all this. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it. Let me see if I can. I don't think I can. That's such a shame. It's such a shame. No, like he's got like 3 crazy scratch marks there. It's so crazy. And then, now this is Becca's birthday, but it's the first birthday that Brian and Becca had been married. So like now they're kind of like one, right? So now on her birthday, things are happening. On her birthday, she's painting in the garage because she wants to finish up her project. And she looked up and she saw a very tall shadow man walking from the basement area going upstairs. And she's freaking out because she's worried about her husband because there's that man going upstairs. And she's freaking out. And that's one of her most terrifying stories, of seeing the tall shadow man. Oh yeah, this is great. The tall shadow man. That's another crazy story. Becca waking up screaming at 2 to 3 a.m. Becca's reportedly woken up to terrible night terrors and wakes up screaming randomly around 2 to 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. Becca waking up Brian mumbling weird stuff in his sleep. Oh yeah, Becca will also wake up, not to night terrors, but just Brian mumbling weird stuff in his sleep. It's crazy. They had a rabbit, and they brought it over for the college group's second investigation, so we had to really tag it for noise contamination. And it was acting strange. And then, I don't know, like a few days or weeks later, apparently it just started freaking out. And then they took it to the vet and it just died. So the rabbit, totally fine at the parents' house. Totally fine. And then as soon as they bring it into to their new house, weird stuff starts happening. And Becca to this day thinks that whatever's there killed her rabbit. It's insane. Then when they went to bury, this is almost like unbelievable stuff. But then they go to bury the rabbit in the backyard. And then one day Becca saw another rabbit next to the grave, and she said it was the rabbit's friend. Then the next day, the couple found out that the rabbit got stuck in a fence and it was eaten half alive. There was only half the rabbit there right next to the grave. There's so much death that surrounds this stuff. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're almost done. This is literally crazy stuff. I'll try and scoot past it a little more. Oh, gosh. Becca claims whatever killed her rabbit lives upstairs in the attic. That's true. Oh gosh. At first, no one thought this could be true because for the first 2 or so investigations, nothing really happened in the attic. People felt safest up there. And then on the third investigation of the college group, we're saying, hey, is there anyone here with us? And it said zoo. Out of the ghost box, it says random words. It said zoo. And then we kept talking. We kept talking, and one of our members said, "Hey, Brian, this is a little weird, but have you ever heard of Zozo? Like, just like the Ouija board demon, which we're gonna find out that Brian's parents actually messed with Ouija boards in the past. This is really deep stuff. So she's like, yeah, have you ever heard of Zozo? Like, this is some weird stuff, right? And I was like, okay, yeah, like, so just tell us your name. And it said Zero. And then someone said Zero and zoo. And those are the only 2 Z words in our ghost box. And I'm like, Zero, zoo. Is that like Zozo? Oh no. And then 3 girls that were on the side of the attic literally heard some kind of growl. And it freaked them out, like some like animal growl. And they're freaking out. And we're looking, there's no animals whatsoever. And it was like oh Jesus. That was like what happened on the crazy investigations, which also is a huge section, but I'm going to leave it out. I just told that story because Becca thinks whatever's up in the attic is there. Learning about the Ouija board history, parents playing with them. Brian was curious about Ouija boards one day after researching and asked his parents. His parents admitted to using them and not saying goodbye. For some reason after that, the family has just been haunted the rest of their life. That's why we don't play with Ouija boards, people. What's going on here? So, oh geez, Veronica Victoria. Dream in the attic with a girl in a blue dress, and Brian saying, "What's your name?" And she turned and said Veronica. So Brian had a weird dream that he was up in the attic and there was a weird girl in a blue dress, and he's like, "What's your name? What's your name?" And it turned around and said either Veronica or Victoria. And that's going to play a factor into all these investigations too. I'll just leave it at that. Another dream, but it's his mom's dream, where Brian gets visited by his grandma and says, "Watch out, he's in there." Brian's mom had a dream that Brian is in the hallway of his home and his grandmother walks up to him, points in his dimly lit bedroom, which is the most active place of his house, and says, "Watch out, he's in there." That's insane. That kind of stuff is what his mom is dreaming about. That's some I have to protect my son signs. Like that's the nature. This stuff is. Brian walks into his house reading a newspaper, and there's baskets on the ceiling part of his house, and it just flies off towards him, like something just pushed it off or threw it at him, and there's no one in the house. Banging on the door, no one's there. There have been multiple times where they were hearing knocking on doors and no one was there. One example is when we were all playing cards after that light thing with Mikey that I talked about earlier. There were 3 loud knocks on the door. John went to check, and sure enough, no one was there. Just very coincidental that both instances occurred on the same day. Yeah, just 3 knocks. Let me in. Open the door, there's no one there, and we just let something bad in, but there's already something bad in there. Who knows? This crazy stuff is going. Brian slammed the attic door after yelling at crows, and there was a growl from the attic. Yeah, he heard some crows up like on the roof of his house. And so like he was in his office, and then he heard a ton of crows. They were very loud on the roof. He opened the attic and yelled at them and shut the door at them to shut up. When he closed the door, he heard a giant growl. He then put his headphones on and pretended it didn't happen. Oh. And then, so at my parents' house, Brian came over and we were talking about all the weird stuff about how things sometimes go missing. We're all talking about weird stuff that happens at CPR. One of the items we spoke about was how certain items go missing and then reappear. The following day, my mom lost her remote, and for the next 3 days, she checked everywhere, etc. You know, a good few hours looking for it, can't find this remote. On the 3rd day, my mom went to the bathroom, and when she came back to her usual chair, she sat down and felt something. It was the remote. She immediately started crying and thought that one of us were messing with her the entire time. That's not the case, but everyone feels that way with CPR. Brian and Becca hear noises that others don't. Brian would hear noises when he was inside that bedroom that Becca said she did not hear. Likewise, Becca would be hearing things down the hall and Brian didn't hear them. So it's just a little like weird mind game. And Brian having items missing or disappearing, then reappearing. Brian has had items on the kitchen table, for example, that just disappear for a few hours and then reappear on the counter somewhere else. Another example is when objects like keys would move from room to room when he knows that he nor Becca moved them. That's insane. Let me just have my keys in the office and they reappear on the kitchen table or the living room table. Like dolls to play song, but Becca here. Yeah, so they got these creepy wind-up dolls, which you're gonna see in our investigation. And so we used them on investigation, and then a few days after the investigation for like the college investigation, she just heard it playing in the attic and no one was up there and there was no weird like, she wasn't walking around or anything. She was just in like her bedroom, and up above her she just heard ding 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 like from the from the attic. Yeah, and then this one's another scenario where people are sleeping over and hearing stuff downstairs. Becca has to put the fan on so she doesn't hear the noises in the closet / under the bed when Brian is away. Becca, when she's alone and Brian's away on a trip, will put the fan on and call her family so she doesn't have to hear the creepy noises. So, insane. I just ran through the list of everything that kind of happened up to like 2019. I'm not even talking about the investigations. During the investigations, people are feeling punches in their stomach, scratches on their backs, putting it's not the ghost box, it's not the spirit box, but wow. What in the world? It's the portal. this is all college group stuff. Back scratch, people feeling punches, people putting on the portal and it's screaming at them, "I am God." Getting Victoria or Veronica in the attic, feeling that the house is shaking, and people's necklaces being tugged, socks being tugged, specific chairs shaking, seeing tall shadow figures walking across, feeling sick, people hearing footsteps running at them, seeing, like floating heads at them. And now for this college group, there's at least 30 to 50 different people that come on these things, over the 10 different times. So the sample size is huge. Like, there's so many different people, and there's a lot of people that have gone multiple times. Me and my professor hearing screaming from the car, only we heard it, and then when we asked the other students, they didn't hear anything. And me and my professor are like the most skeptics of the group. It's great. Oh man. And then I'm outside the door shut. There's so much stuff. I will say this one other thing. There have been people that come off like sensitives, and they say that something lurks in the house. This is perfect. This is ironic, because when you see CPR 1 and the full breakdown in 2 weeks, or the full breakdown is going to be next week, but all the evidence is going to be in 2 weeks. I want you to listen to this. Feelings of something lurking around, typically upstairs, but sometimes downstairs. Ironically, this is the last piece of evidence I included in this report. There have been multiple sensitive people on our team that report the feeling of something lurking around the house, typically where the team is not. So, if they're upstairs, it will be in the halls or downstairs. If the team is downstairs, it will be lurking somewhere upstairs, going from room to room. Lastly, multiple people have felt that it spends most of its time standing in the corner top left of the Cunningham's bed, just waiting for something or watching them sleep. And we're going to go and we're going to try a new piece of evidence, or a new piece of technology, which is the Kinect. And when we turn on the Kinect, there's going to be a stick figure in that very spot that many sensitive people, empaths, have felt something was there 5 years ago. Since 5 years ago, people have been saying that. And as soon as we bring in something that can see it, it appears. And it's ironic that I leave it there for the last piece of evidence. So, look, there's two main theories of what is lurking around CPR. The first is that there's two spirits, one that's dominant and one that's submissive and shy. That is because the activity supports something being mean and angry. However, there are instances where the activity points to something as shy, hiding, and quiet, and sometimes helpful. The leading theory is, which is the second main thought process, is that there is one spirit that is pretending to be something that it's not. That would explain the two different moods, either trying to hide or attack us. An example would be the spirit is touching and caressing one of our members, and then later that night scratching its back. There's also an element here of this thing only causing activity on its own terms. Like, if we ask it to, it won't do anything, but when we're not expecting it, it'll do what it wants. Also playing a factor in this is Veronica, which is the from Brian's dream, who might either be following Brian or perhaps residual from the house he bought. In this case, this could be the submissive spirit from the first theory above. And maybe something that is inhuman, that's living through Brian and just wants to experience his life and can only get energy by getting a rise out of him. And certainly when people go to investigate, it doesn't like that. That's the full history of CPR1. This is everything that happened before August 2019 when we, Your Paranormal, do our first investigation. This has been a very long video. I apologize. But I want this to be a good reference point. This video is a good reference point. Most history videos aren't going to be this long when it comes to what happens previously during the investigations leading up to our actual investigation. So there's going to be 4 parts to each investigation. 1, the history. 2, the full breakdown, who went, why they did each role. Number 3, a huge highlight and breakdown of all the evidence, showing all the evidence. And 4th, a conclusion. So that's what's going on here. This was part 1, all the history. I really hope you enjoyed it. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. We really appreciate you. And this was Storytime Sunday. This is a cute little story. Hope everyone has a great day, great Mother's Day.